My biological father suddenly had a heart attack and was about to write a will leaving everything to his illegitimate son. I rushed over in tears and tore up the will. We don't talk about such things between father and son, Dad. Even if you become a vegetable, I'll still serve you tea and water and take care of you. The doctors and nurses were moved by my filial piety and praised me for being such a devoted son. My father's eyes nearly popped out of his head in rage, but I held him down firmly on the hospital bed. He was so furious he passed out and went into critical condition, being rushed into emergency surgery. By the time the nanny got the news and rushed over with the cheap bastard brother in tow. With tears in my eyes, I had already signed the do not resuscitate order and swiftly sent my father to the crematorium, where he was reduced to a handful of ashes. They couldn't believe it and exploded with rage on the spot. I chuckled, well, the old man had to go and die without leaving a will burned to a crisp, without even a strand of hair left for a paternity test. Guess that means I get to inherit the whole estate now. When I've known for a long time that my father had an illegitimate child outside. If it weren't for this, my mother wouldn't have died. The two of them struggled for most of their lives and finally achieved some success in their careers. That's when my father suggested hiring a nanny, both to take care of the household and to look after me. But when the nanny arrived, I found her face strangely familiar. That night, I sneaked into my father's study and sure enough found a photo tucked away in his collection of books. It seems my memory was right. When I was little, I loved tearing up books and my parents always indulged me. But the moment I touched that particular book back, then my father immediately snatched it away from me. A photograph fell out and I remembered it at a glance back then. Later, seeing how precious he was with that photo, I sneaked in to look at it a few more times. After my dad caught me, he gave me a good beating and threatened me to pretend I never saw it. As time passed, my dad probably thought I had forgotten about the whole thing. But I distinctly remember wasn't this nanny the very woman from the photograph. I secretly told my mother, but she just smiled and reassured me that everything was fine. Yet that very night, I clearly heard the two of them arguing. The nanny was temporarily dismissed after that. But about half a month later, whether it was my mother as compromise or my father as coercion, the nanny reappeared. When my mother was at home, she at least knew how to restrain herself. But the moment my mother was away, she acted as if she owned the place, doing whatever she pleased. As for my father's so-called looking after me, that was never a thing to begin with. Another 6 months passed. One morning my mother suddenly coughed up blood. A hospital examination revealed a serious illness. She didn't even have time to say anything to me before passing away. At the time I was convinced that my father and that wicked nanny had conspired to kill my mother. But I was too young to resist, powerless to do anything but weep at her funeral. But the seed of hatred had been sown. My father climbed the ranks, struck it rich, and lost his wife, earning tens of millions, if not more, in just a few years. As I grew older, I keenly noticed multiple times that my father had intentions of elevating the nanny to a higher position. But considering the company's growing influence, coupled with my maternal grandfather's side, who lacked everything except numbers and a penchant for making a scene, he was afraid of causing a scandal that would affect his income, so he didn't dare act rashly. He only fired the nanny on the surface, but secretly rented a place for her outside. I knew exactly where that place was located. Most of the time, I was the only one at home guarding that enormous empty villa. My father would go over to his mistress's place, reuniting with what he considered his real family, enjoying domestic bliss. At first, he still treated me somewhat like a son. He would occasionally consider my feelings, asking after my well-being now and then. But as time passed and the family business grew, he became increasingly indifferent toward me. Whether it was my transition from elementary to middle school or from middle school to high school, he couldn't have cared less. He never even bothered to ask. I could even sense that if it weren't for fear of my maternal grandfather's family causing a scene, he wouldn't have hesitated to kick me out of the house. But I had no other choice but to endure and bide my time waiting for the right moment. Soon enough, that moment I'd been waiting for finally arrived. Today, while my father was searching for documents at home, he suddenly collapsed and a bottle of fast-acting heart relief pills fell out of his pocket. Seeing this, I guessed he must have overworked himself and had a heart problem. Who knows if it was from work or from the bedroom. Without time to think too much, I rushed over, kicked his medicine bottle away, and crouched down to ask with feigned concern, Dad, what's wrong? My father trembled violently, desperately reaching for the medicine bottle. Yet I forcefully pulled his hand back, pretending ignorance, as I kept asking, what was wrong, Dad? Speak to me, tell me what you want to do. My father glared at me with reddened eyes, his lips quivering uncontrollably, but no words came out. I suspect in that moment he must have wanted to kill me. But with kindness in my heart, how could I possibly commit murder intentionally? After he glared at me so intensely that he passed out, I called out to him for over 10 minutes without response before frantically dialing emergency services. The paramedics arrived and asked me, did the patient have any pre-existing medical conditions? How would I know? My father, as always too busy, hasn't come home in ages. I helped carry him while answering through tears. At the hospital, the doctor performed emergency treatment. Then, with regret, he informed me to consider carefully whether to proceed with surgery, as even with the operation the success rate was less than 10%. Through sobs, I insisted on the surgery, begging him to save my father. If he can't be saved then, so be it. I absolutely want to cause a scene or trouble the hospital. After signing the surgical consent form, I turned back toward the hospital room. But then I saw my father had actually woken up, his trembling hands clutching pen and paper as he wrote something. I rushed over to look and discovered he was actually writing his will. The content is about leaving the entire inheritance to the illegitimate child of the nanny. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. I was overjoyed. Great, it seems he hadn't even had time to make a will before this. I immediately stepped forward, snatched the will he had painstakingly written, and tore it to shreds. Then he suddenly threw himself onto my father, wailing loudly. Dad, we're father and son. Why talk about wills? I'm your only son. What's the point of making a will? Even if you become a vegetable, I'll still bring you tea and water to serve you. Dad, you must hold on. As I cried, I subtly shifted my weight to press against the area near his heart. The nurses beside me wiped their tears while praising my filial piety, deeply moved by my actions. But only from my angle could one see my father's eyes were wide with fury, his body thrashing violently. But Dad, you're old now, you can't win against me anymore. In less than half a minute, he fainted from sheer rage. The nearby machine began beeping urgently with alarm. The doctor rushed and quickly checked his pupillary response and immediately declared the condition critical, requiring emergency surgery. I eagerly raised both hands and feet in agreement, watching as my father was urgently wheeled into the operating room. 2 agonizing hours crawled by. The doctor hurried out of the operating room with a grave expression, informing me that the surgery had been successful. I nearly spat out a mouthful of old blood. Damn it, did I really run into that 10% success rate? But soon the doctor used a series of medical terms I couldn't comprehend to explain. Even if he survives, he'll only be kept alive on a ventilator in the ICU, with an extremely high probability of brain death. Tears of excitement immediately streamed down my face. The doctor thought I was overwhelmed with grief and quickly tried to comfort me. I shook my head, gritted my teeth to suppress a laugh. My dad hated suffering more than anything since you've said it. So, doctor, we want to treat him. I want my dad to go comfortably. Then, with a face full of sorrow, I signed the consent form to withdraw treatment and personally removed my father's breathing tube. Soon after the white sheet was draped over him, I immediately had the doctor issue the death certificate and personally escorted him to the crematorium. Thanks to my financial power, I even secured the SVIP express lane at the crematorium. In less than an hour, my father was successfully reduced to ashes and placed in a shoe box. While I couldn't bring myself to splurge on the 10,000 yuan urn, he didn't deserve it. Not fond of the big villa, where you enjoy your cubicle from now on. I couldn't help, but some money really does make life easier. 3 When I came out holding the shoe box, oh no, the urn, a crowd of funeral service staff rushed forward eagerly. Probably thinking my dad was a wealthy man, they were sure they could squeeze a fortune out of me. Little did they know, I tossed the urn into the trunk and sped off without a second glance. Screw holding a funeral, what a waste of money. My mom taught me that thrift is a virtue. After obtaining the death certificate, I immediately contacted the company lawyer. After promising him a 1 million yuan kickback, he became even more anxious than I was to avoid complications and expedited the inheritance process for me. Damn, I have to say my father left behind quite a fortune. Personal cash assets of 80 million, a villa, plus a highly profitable company under his name. He also had investments in 2 promising startups. I've never seen so much money in my life. When my mom was around, I never had to worry about food or clothes, and she always gave me pocket money. After my mom left, I basically just survived on whatever kept me from starving, because no one cared about me. Even though I lived in a huge, empty mansion, there were times when I didn't even have enough to eat. Unless my dad came back and couldn't stand the sight of me, he'd throw me some money. But that money, after deducting tuition, was only enough for instant noodles. On the surface, I was a rich second-generation heir, but in reality, I lived worse than a left-behind child. Now great, I'd become a nouveau riche. I rushed off to indulge in the long-craved feast celebrating my father's splendid little funeral. After eating and drinking my fill, I returned to the villa, only to find the maid Mary and her son Daniel pacing anxiously at the door. When they saw me, the 2 of them came running over with wide eyes. Whereas your father, I pursed my lips, steeling myself for a long moment, but the tears just wouldn't come. After all, with a net worth now exceeding 100 million, there's nothing but sheer fucking joy. My father passed away, sudden heart attack. Mary was thunderstruck, swaying on her feet as if struck by lightning, nearly collapsing right then and there. Her son immediately supported her, but his eyes were also vacant as he murmured, "Dad, Mom, I don't have a dad anymore." I quickly walked past them into the villa and shut the front door directly. After Mary and her son recovered, they hurried over to knock on the door. "Open up, where's your father's body? Give it to us now." Without even opening the door, I casually replied, "Oops, forgot he's still in the trunk." As I spoke, I pressed the car key toward the window. The trunk popped open, revealing a cheap urn squeezed among a pile of junk toolboxes. Mary and her son were stunned, exploding on the spot. "How could you cremate him directly? Why was he cremated?" "Nathan, you bastard, he wasn't just your father. He was my man, the real father of my son. How dare you cremate him without our consent? Open the door, your father already promised everything inside to us, at least half should belong to my son." A smirk played at the corners of my lips as I sneered. Well, how unfortunate that the old man died without leaving a will burned so thoroughly there isn't even a strand of hair left for a paternity test. Now it all falls to me, the sole inheritor of the entire estate. Let me make this crystal clear, every last bit of it. Mary and her son went berserk upon hearing this, throwing themselves against the door like madmen. "Nathan, you bastard, so you knew he would die all along. Open the door, open it now. Give me back my money." Finding the noise unbearable, I called security and had them thrown out immediately. Afterward, I listed the villa for sale online. Such a big house, one person can't hold it down, lacks human energy. It's also inauspicious sell it after selling by a large flat in Thompson Riviera. For the next day, the real estate agent came first. Unexpectedly, Mary and her son barged in right behind them. "Nathan, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing?" She grabbed my clothes and shouted at me. She acted as if I was selling her house. "Nathan, I'm telling you, my son is also your father's son. You have no right to sell the house. Even if you sell it, half of the money belongs to my son." "You bastard, Nathan, did you kill my father? Answer me." Mary was frantically demanding the property from me. Her son acted as if I had caused him to lose his father and tried to rush at me to fight. The real estate agent panicked. With all this commotion, they didn't know whether to continue showing the house or not. I waved my hand with a smile. "Hey, don't worry, my broker friends, there's absolutely no dispute over this house. Just wait, I'll call someone to help me." Seeing that I was about to call for backup, Mary's son immediately raised his voice and shouted, "Stop pretending as if you're the only one with connections. Just you wait today. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you." Then he made a call to summon his own people, even telling them to bring weapons. The agents panicked even more, all wanting to leave, until the sound of police sirens grew closer and closer. The agent's heart settled while Mary's son was stunned. He immediately panicked and wanted to make a call to send word. I reacted swiftly, snatching it and smashing it directly on the ground. His phone was instantly destroyed. "Nathan, what the hell are you doing?" I laughed. "It's just a phone. I just inherited tens of millions. Wait, I'll get you a new one later." 5 after the police entered, they asked who had called them. I raised my hand and walked out. By then, Mary and her son were already trying to slip away, or rather attempting to go out and stop the reinforcements that were about to arrive. I immediately jumped up, pointing at them and shouting. Officers quickly restrained them. They were trying to break in and commit violence. In the blink of an eye, the 2 police officers immediately stopped Mary and her son upon hearing this. They hurriedly explained to officers it's not what he said. He's making false accusations. But before the officers could even question them, a dozen burly men suddenly stormed into the villa. Armed with steel pipes and machetes, they stood face to face with the police. Now it's all messed up, impossible to explain clearly. The police officers quickly took action, arresting some, while others managed to escape. Seeing how serious the situation had become, Mary rushed over and urged me to explain. "Nathan, hurry up and explain properly. We're just here to claim the inheritance, not to cause trouble." I threw up my hands, coming here armed with weapons. If the police officers hadn't been on the scene today, I can't even imagine what might have happened. "Officer, I will pursue accountability for this matter to the fullest extent." "Nathan, you bastard, you're lying." Mary and that illegitimate child were taken away for questioning amidst their struggles. The agents looked at each other, unsure of what to do. I smiled and said, "Let us go check out the house. I guarantee no disputes. I'll show you the property deed." I listed the house online for $5 million below market price. Soon a buyer came to view the property and was very satisfied. He asked if I could lower the price a bit. "How about $4 or $5 million? Without a second thought, I agreed. The goal was to make a quick sale and get the money fast. Once the money was in hand, I immediately bought a fully furnished luxury apartment outright and moved in happily, ready to live there right away. That very same day, Mary and her son were released. They had been detained for 3 days in total. The first thing they did after getting out was to look for me, searching everywhere. Even the new homeowner called me, saying people kept harassing him and asking me to step in and resolve it. My reply was simple: the property is under your name now. If they come and make trouble, just call the police on them. Unexpectedly, the homeowner didn't call the police, Mary did. On the 7th, the homeowner called me saying Mary had accused him of illegal transactions and property encroachment, urging me to come over immediately. Hearing this, I thought, this is getting out of hand. I gotta go see the show. I rushed over immediately, only to find Mary throwing a tantrum with her son in tow. Our Benjamin S. house was sold dirt cheap by that bastard son of his after he passed away. Mark my words, this boy here is Benjamin S. Flesh, and blood too. Selling the house without his younger brother S. consent is clearly illegal. And it's been so long my son hasn't seen a single penny as co-heirs. How dare Nathan hog everything for himself? Brother, you're finally here. Quick, take a look at what's going on. I paid $5 million for this house. You can't let me get screwed over. Seeing my arrival, the homeowner rushed over as if spotting a savior. Mary and her son followed closely behind, making as if to grab at me. Nathan, you damn murderer. Where's the money? Our share of the money. The police officer shouted sternly. Quiet. Everyone speak one at a time. Then the officer turned to me and asked why hadn't he informed my younger brother when selling the house. I was stunned. What younger brother? I've always been the only child in our family. Here, I even brought the household register to prove it. The household head was my father, but he is already deceased, and his household registration was canceled. My mother also passed away 10 years ago. Now I'm household head. The police officer took a look and immediately frowned at Mary and her son. The mother and son quickly explained, my son is truly Benjamin's biological child. Look, if you don't believe us. He produced a photo, a father-son picture of my dad and Daniel. You can't deny it, the two of them really do look alike. The police officer asked, so what's your relationship with Nathan? He is Benjamin's child from a previous marriage. There's no connection between us. Nonsense. What previous marriage? My parents stayed married until their dying day. No, not divorce papers or anything like that. Even without the formalities, I'm the rightful wife. Mary was so frantic she became incoherent. The Qing dynasty fell ages ago. Now, even the term rightful wife is being dredged up. Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, she pointed directly at me. Benjamin must have been killed by him after the murder. He rushed to cremate the body to destroy the evidence. He was just saying the other day that Benjamin died without leaving a will turn to ashes, not even a strand of hair left for a paternity test. Officers, you must believe me, my son has lost his father. Isn't that tragic enough? He deserves half of this estate. The officer grew visibly impatient. Without substantial evidence, refrained from making malicious assumptions. This property has already been legally transferred and is now protected by law. If you continue to harass us, we'll have no choice but to handle this officially. If you have any further objections, I suggest you take it to court. Upon hearing this, Mary immediately plopped down on the ground wailing. There is no justice in this world, a real flesh and blood son being bullied like this. A crowd of onlookers watched. Seizing the moment, I walked over to the homeowner and whispered, next time they come, just call the police. One arrest will settle it. Don't worry, there's absolutely no dispute. You know exactly why. I gave you a $500,000 discount on this house. For this little bit of trouble, $500,000 is still a bargain for you. Seeing the new homeowner nod, I drove away in my newly acquired Maserati under the devouring gazes of Mary and her son. The next day on a whim, I decided to visit my cheap father-esque company. Turns out Mary and her son, having failed to get anything from me, had actually made a scene at the company. Do you all want to keep your jobs or not? Benjamin is dead, and this is his legitimate son. He is here to inherit the company. And he asked the department manager himself, don't tell me you don't recognize him. I've heard about it. My father brought him into the company to pave the way for his illegitimate son. Back then, I couldn't even afford meals while that bastard already held a manager-esque position with a monthly salary of tens of thousands. But what a pity, no matter how much my father doted on him, he never dared to tell the employees this was his son. After all, many people know that I'm the only child in my family. It just so happens that I've been to the company before, though it was to ask my dad for money, but I still show my face. Most people in the company know me. Stop making a scene. Here our boss only has one son, and his name is Nathan. Where did this so-called son of yours come from? Nonsense. Daniel, I'm warning you, if you keep causing trouble, I'll fire you from your position as department manager immediately. The general manager was furious. Not only did he refuse to believe the identities of this mother and child pair, he didn't even believe my father was dead. Mary wouldn't let it go. Nathan is probably dead somewhere, enjoying himself. You'd better help my son become chairman right now, or I'll have you fired. Well, look who is making a scene in my company. I walked over leisurely dressed in casual clothes. The entire company's upper management was stunned, exchanging bewildered glances. That expression seemed to say the young boss is here. Could the old boss really be dead? I didn't beat around the bush either and directly showed them the death certificate. Then I declared, from today onward, I am the highest authority in this company. Your jobs remain unchanged and your year-end bonuses will be doubled. Now get back to work. Before their shock could fully fade, delight began to surface on their faces. Seeing my stern expression, she didn't dare say more and responded with a simple yes before preparing to leave. But Mary stubbornly blocked the way, refusing to let anyone leave. Nobody leaves. Let us make this clear. This company belongs to Benjamin, and my son is Benjamin's illegitimate child. We'll talk about dropping a bombshell right then and there. These executives all wore expressions of eager anticipation for gossip. Mary continued her incessant chatter. Benjamin and I have known each other since childhood. We were childhood sweethearts. We just lost contact after he got married. After he became wealthy, he came back to me, and we had Daniel together, who is now your department manager and future chairman. Clap, clap, clap. Facing the stunned gazes of the executives, I applauded with a smile. Quite the story. Keep going. I'm not making this up. It's the truth. I cleared my throat and turned to explain to the executives, she's just our family's nanny who's gone mad. Ever since my mother passed, she has been delusional, imagining herself as the lady of the house. And this child, she had him with some motorcycle mechanic from the countryside. Not a damn thing to do with my father. All right, that's enough gossip for now. Everyone, get back to work. You can spin a tale, but I can spin an even better one. Mary's face was a sight to behold, twisted as if she'd bitten into bitter herbs, stomping her feet in frustration. Don't believe me? Let me tell you, the house we're living in now was bought by Benjamin. He comes to stay at my place every day, and there are so many of his personal belongings there. At the mention of personal belongings, Mary froze. Her eyes suddenly widened, and the corners of her mouth curled up wildly. Nathan, did you think cremating him quickly would prevent me from proving paternity? There's plenty of your father's hair in that apartment of mine. 9. Mary, finding hope in desperate straits, laughed heartily. But I waved my hand, dismissively call security to throw them out. If they let unauthorized people in again, they can consider themselves fired. What about this Daniel? He's the RD department manager. What is the point of continuing? RD, fire them immediately. Understood, President Nathan. Daniel glared at me through gritted teeth. Nathan, you bastard. His mother had just found a breakthrough and was currently exhilarated. She pulled her son aside to console him. Don't be afraid, son. We're going home right now to gather evidence for a paternity test. Your father's estate will all be yours in the future. All these people, fire them all when the time comes, every single one of them. Daniel nodded vigorously, his face a mix of excitement and ferocity. Good, just you wait. With that, the two of them left. After they were gone, I immediately contacted my lawyer to have him investigate how many more assets my father had hidden outside. I'm taking everything back. 2 days later, I received confirmation that my father had indeed bought Mary and them a house along with a car. The house was registered under Daniel's name, and so was the car, given that it's no surprise at all that my father's belongings were left in that house. That same afternoon, I received a court summons. Mary and her son had sued me, accusing me of illegally seizing the inheritance. On the day of the hearing, Mary was glowing with confidence. Watch closely, son, and see how your mother reclaims everything that rightfully belongs to you today. Some people were never favored since childhood. Don't even think about turning your life around in this lifetime. The good things will never be yours. Her son nodded vigorously. Mom, once we take the company back, I'll fire all those who bullied us immediately, especially the security guard who kicked us out. I watched them without showing any expression. With a light chuckle, I stepped into the courthouse. After today, I'll make sure you don't even have a place to live. 10. After the trial began, the opposing lawyer methodically presented a series of evidence proving the relationship between Mary and my father. The evidence included chat records, photos together, and their travel tickets. Your Honor, these documents prove that Ms. Mary and Benjamin were in a romantic relationship. After speaking, he produced a freshly issued paternity test. Since Benjamin has passed away and the defendant Nathan maliciously rushed the cremation, making standard paternity testing procedures impossible with the consent of the concerned party, we collected Benjamin's hair from the house where he once lived. This document sufficiently proves the paternal relationship between Benjamin and Daniel. Therefore, we request the freezing and seizure of all of Benjamin's estate, with half to be allocated to my client in accordance with inheritance laws. Do you have any objections to the evidence provided by the plaintiff? The judge inquired. Yes. I nodded without even letting my lawyer speak. My father did have an improper relationship with her. I knew about it. I object. The defendant is maliciously insulting my client. Objection overruled. The defendant may proceed. I watched the opposing lawyer with a cold smile. You knew he had a family, yet still chose to cohabit with him. Do you know what that makes you? The defendant's statement is false. My client only cohabited with Benjamin after his wife's death. Was the child also born after they started living together? I countered. The lawyer stammered for a long moment before saying, I object. This line of questioning is irrelevant to the case. Objection overruled. Counsel for the plaintiff, please answer the question directly. 11. My lawyer spoke up. Your Honor, Daniel is already in his early 20s while Benjamin's wife passed away only 10 years ago. The opposing lawyer stammered, appearing rather incompetent. Yes, he must have been born before they started living together. But this doesn't conflict with inheritance rights. We've already conducted a paternity test. I smiled. My $1 million a year lawyer smiled. 2. How can you prove the hair sample you used for testing belonged to the deceased Benjamin? I exaggerated my expression, putting on an act of sudden realization. Oh right, the burden of proof lies with the accuser. Even if the hair belongs to Daniel's biological father, how can you prove it's my dad, Benjamin? S. You can't just claim it's his and expect us to believe you. Mary and her son, along with their lawyer, were instantly dumbfounded. Their incompetent lawyer grew flustered and blurted, "Your Honor, my client can guarantee that the sample submitted was indeed Benjamin S. own." Mary shouted that S. "Right, Your Honor, I swear that hair was Benjamin S. You have to believe us." The judge rapped the gavel order in the court. After reviewing some documents, he asked me, "Mr. Benjamin has already been cremated, correct?" Before I could answer, Mary interjected. "Yes, it was his malicious doing dragged straight from the operating room to the crematorium. And I also have his signed consent to discontinue treatment." They acted as if they grabbed a lifeline, excitedly waving the document bearing my signature to cease medical intervention. As his biological son, he denied him even a chance for treatment. I strongly suspect he had murderous intent, deliberately trying to kill Benjamin to seize the estate. Furthermore, Benjamin S. ashes are still in the trunk of his car to this day. We Chinese always believe in letting the deceased rest in peace. What kind of son would do this? Mary bombarded me with accusations. Her expression was downright ferocious. If this weren't in a courtroom, she probably would lost control on the spot. In contrast, I remained perfectly composed. My lawyer calmly countered, "Your Honor, if the plaintiff continues to make personal attacks against my client, we reserve the right to take legal action. I'm not making personal attacks. His relationship with his father was already strained. My suspicions are well-founded. Your Honor, allow me to make a statement." I confronted Mary S. testimony head-on. "My relationship with my father was great, but what does all this testimony from the plaintiff have to do with my inheritance? Our family fortune was built with my mother's dowry back, then it was earned through my parents' joint efforts. As their only son, why shouldn't I inherited? Moreover, the direct reason for the freezing point in our father-son relationship was her. She knew my father had a family, yet still meddled in destroying our family's harmony. My mother was literally hounded to death by the two of them together. In the 10 years since my mother's death, they have maintained this illicit relationship all along. What kind of father is he? Why should I bother getting along with him?" Bang, 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 the judge raps the gavel. The hospital acknowledges that the right to discontinue treatment belongs to the defendant. Furthermore, the plaintiff's paternity test results indeed fail to effectively prove the familial relationship and are therefore invalid. Mary S.'s legs gave way and she nearly collapsed into the chair. The opposing lawyer suddenly stood up. "We demand a paternity test with the defendant. If it proves a blood relationship, then it can be confirmed that Daniel is Benjamin's own flesh and blood." Hearing this, I burst into laughter. Let us not even talk about whether I'm willing to take a paternity test with him. Even if I were willing, my father's generation had 3 brothers. Who can say for certain he is my father's flesh and blood and not one of my uncles? Even if we take the most extreme scenario, what if I'm not biologically related to my father either? What if I was picked up from a garbage dump? To prove you're his son, you'd still have to take a paternity test with him. Oh, of course, even if I'm not biologically related to my father, I'm still his sole legal heir. The lawyer nearly spat blood upon hearing this preposterous. Mary appeared extremely agitated, rising abruptly as if to charge at me. After being sternly silenced by the judge, he still pointed at me and cursed. "Nathan, you bastard, I was living with your father, not your uncles. Don't get worked up. The law values evidence, not your tantrums. Can you honestly say this possibility doesn't exist? You bastard, damn you, Nathan." Order in the court. The judge, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, banged the gavel repeatedly. Do either the plaintiff or defendant have any further statements to make? I nudged the lawyer's arm, and he immediately understood, pulling out a document. "Your Honor, my client demands the recovery of his father's overseas assets. This includes the plaintiff Daniel's house and car. That house and car are registered under my son's name. How dare you try to reclaim them?" Mary was furious to the extreme. The lawyer continued in an unhurried tone. "We have evidence showing the payer was Benjamin and the account holder at that time was also Benjamin. But half a year after the transaction, the account holder was changed to Daniel. That was Benjamin who voluntarily requested to transfer the property to my son." Plaintiff remained silent. Wait for the defendant to finish their statement. Before speaking, do not disrupt court order. Defense counsel, you may proceed. The lawyer then produced another deposition document. According to our investigation, Benjamin was not present for either of the 2 property transfers involving the house and the car. Both transactions were processed by Mary using Benjamin's identification documents. Therefore, we conclude that Benjamin was unaware of the transfer procedures, and thus there was no act of gifting involved. Nonsense, how could the property be transferred without the concerned party being present? Mary shouted furiously. The lawyer didn't respond either. After submitting the evidence, he said nothing more. The judge examined it for a while, then set the evidence aside and asked Mary, "Did you have any sort of gifting agreement at the time?" "How could there be an agreement? We were lovers. Why would we write something like that?" The plaintiff is warning you once when the judge asks a question, answer directly and truthfully without mentioning irrelevant matters. I am stating the facts. How is this not a direct answer? The judge's expression darkened slightly. He then struck the gavel and announced an adjournment, scheduling the verdict for another date. My request was also required to be filed as a separate case. But in truth, the outcome was already written all over his face. 12. Judge Uhaven T. understood the full picture, yet don't leave. Mary was aggrieved despite being my father's biological son. Now, he couldn't even get a single penny. It was unbearably unfair. The court had already adjourned, yet she refused to let it go, insisting on pushing the judge to continue the trial. The court even dispatched bailiffs to warn her that she'd be arrested if she kept harassing them. Only then did she back down with her anger left unvented. She turned on her own defense lawyer, lashing out. How did you defend me? If you can't even argue a case properly, what kind of lawyer are you? During the scuffle, the lawyer got scratched on the face and immediately flew into a rage. Let go, who can you blame for being a homewrecker and mistress? Ha ha, I watched the whole scene unfold from the sidelines and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Just wait till the verdict comes down, she'll get what's coming to her. 13. After leaving the court, I went to the company. These past few days, I specifically hired a professional manager to handle all the company affairs for me. He just called me saying he found some discrepancies and wanted me to come take a look. When I arrived at the company, he handed me the sorted documents. President Nathan, I've checked the company's financial records and found that a department manager named Daniel has accumulated over $5 million in bad debts over the past 3 years. I consulted the finance department, and they said former boss Benjamin was aware of this, but didn't allow an investigation if this debt covered many other accounts 1 balance. I let out a cold laugh. Daniel, you're truly despicable. My father could still protect you when he was alive, but it just so happens I uncovered this right after taking over. Nathan, should we continue the investigation? It's definitely embezzlement. Investigate, dig deep. Once you find the evidence, report it directly to the police. No need to go through me. Yes, Nathan. Sometime later, the court verdict was handed down. The court ruled that the illegitimate child Daniel could not prove his paternity and therefore was not entitled to inheritance rights. Additionally, the lawsuit I filed to reclaim the property and vehicles has also been decided. They are required to return half of Benjamin's assets, specifically half of the house and half of the car. This verdict was within my expectations. After all, they had indeed cohabited as lovers for a long time, forming a de facto marriage, so it wasn't very realistic to demand everything back. But it doesn't stop me from making them homeless. That very day, I took my lawyer and the court verdict to the house they were living in. Mary and her son stood guard like sentries on a city wall, each gripping a kitchen knife. Anyone who dares take my house will have to fight me to the death. Nathan, you heartless devil, even if Kading is your half-brother, how could you be so cruel as to torment him like this? This is just the beginning. The worst is yet to come. Aunt Mary, the court verdict is already out. I advise you to sell the house and car quickly and hand over the money, otherwise being blacklisted as a delinquent debtor. 1 look good for you. Not a single penny for you. I'm appealing this. I will appeal. She was too emotionally worked up, so I didn't engage much, just casually glanced around the room. Luxuriously decorated, this villa must be at least 200 square meters. The cabinet by the door was filled with luxury items. Lawyer Mike, take photos of these. All these items are to be sold and converted to cash for us. As Lawyer Mike took photos with his phone, Mary and her son rushed over to snatch them away. Seizing the opportunity, one took an old phone from the cabinet. I know that phone all too well. It's the one my father used a long time ago. I need to take it back and see if there is any important evidence inside. I'm going to investigate my mother's death. Taking back what is rightfully mine isn't enough. I want their lives too. 15. After causing quite a scene at Mary's house for nearly half an hour, the lawyer and I left. Once outside, the lawyer said to me, "They definitely move the items in the house immediately, but the statute of limitations for appeal hasn't expired yet, so we can't apply for a seizure order." I shook my head. It's fine. I'll consider those things as charity to them. Compared to the suffering they're about to face, these objects are insignificant. After leaving, I went straight to the city hospital. I retrieved my mother's death report and medical records. The results were shocking. I nearly ground my molars to dust after reading them. My mother died from chronic poisoning, just as I had suspected at the time. I asked the doctor whether the hospital would report such cases to the police when encountered during treatment. The attending physician from back then had already retired. The doctor, currently on duty, explained to me, "Many harmful toxins cannot be identified as to their specific components, nor can it be determined which foods they came from, let alone whether they were introduced intentionally or unintentionally, unless it's acute poisoning leading to death. Authorities generally take the initiative to investigate." I left with the medical records, but my mind kept racing the whole way. My mother's chronic poisoning definitely didn't come from our meals, because we always eaten together. If it's not about food, then what could it be? As I pondered, I suddenly had a startling realization. My mother loved lipstick. Her dressing table was covered with all kinds of lipsticks. I immediately called the new owner of the villa and asked if anything was missing from the basement. The homeowner sounded completely confused. What, your family has a basement? I Haven Tea officially moved, and yet the stuff is still there. If you want to come get it quickly in a couple more days, it'll be gone. Turns out he just went for the cheap price back. Then didn't he look carefully or listen properly, thinking he scored a bargain, and rushed through the paperwork with me in a hurry. This actually worked out well for me. After confirming there was nothing left, I immediately drove over. 16 down in the basement, I rummaged through the cluttered items only to feel my heart sink halfway through. There was every kind of cosmetic imaginable, except for lipstick. This only further confirmed my suspicions. It seemed my father had wasted no time cleaning up the evidence after my mother's death. Wait, no, I suddenly remembered that on the day my mother passed away, I had taken a lipstick from her pocket. I had intended to keep it as a memento. I quickly ran upstairs, pulled out a box from under the bed in my old room, and found a faded lipstick inside. I immediately took the lipstick to get it appraised. The test results came out that day, conclusively proving the presence of a slow-acting chemical toxin. The next day, I had someone recover the data from the phone. To my shock, it retrieved their chat records plotting my mother's murder. Mary, when are you finally going to marry me? Benjamin, she refuses to divorce me. What can I do? Mary, you're clearly playing me. Not only can't bring yourself to poison her, you plan to keep me hidden forever. Benjamin, poison? Do you want to visit me in prison? Mary, slow-acting chemical toxins are completely undetectable. Don't you even know that? Mary, if you've got the guts, go buy some poison and slip it into their food. Take out that little bastard along with him. Benjamin understood. There were many more similar chat records after that. Their last conversation occurred on the very day my mother died. Mary furiously questioned Benjamin, why is my mother dead, while I'm completely unharmed? Benjamin pleaded that the child was innocent, saying he would leave all his property to the illegitimate son in the future, begging to be spared. I couldn't stop laughing coldly. So back then I had nearly become another victim of their murderous scheme. At 17, armed with this evidence, I immediately called the police to have him arrested. Mary was completely bewildered when she was arrested, having no idea why she was being taken in. It wasn't until the police mentioned plotting to poison that she was stunned. She cried out her innocence, insisting that Benjamin had acted alone in the poisoning. The police saw no need to show her the evidence. Everything would become clear in court. On the other side, Daniel ran to my place and knelt down begging me to let Mary off the hook. He promised to give me half of the property and the car. He even said that since the person was already dead, there was no point in dwelling on the past. Because of those words, I slapped him over a dozen times until his nose and mouth bled. He wanted to warn me about intentional harm. Yet before he could even pull out his phone, the police arrived on the scene. Handcuffs clicked shut. His expression was identical to his mother's, both utterly bewildered as to why they were being arrested. The charge given to him was embezzlement, with the amount exceeding $5 million. Daniel's legs instantly gave way beneath him. That was given to me by my father. I didn't embezzle it. I didn't. 18. Daniel's case was ironclad with irrefutable evidence. The verdict came in less than a month. There was no document to prove the gift, and Daniel remained an employee in the company. Due to the enormous amount of embezzlement, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with confiscation of all personal property. More than half a year later, Mary was also sentenced. As the mastermind behind the homicide plot, she was identified as the principal offender. Due to the heinous nature of the crime and the motive to poison me, as well, the court sentenced them to death and confiscated all personal property. Both Mary and Daniel refused to accept the verdict and filed a second appeal. I also demanded a retrial, vehemently insisting that Benjamin, that murderer, be included. Even if he is dead, I'll make sure he is convicted. I want to let him rest easy even in hell. 19 time flew by in the blink of an eye, and the final verdict from the intermediate court was handed down. Benjamin was branded a murderer. The original sentences for both Mary and her son were upheld. Today was the day Mary would be executed. I stood before my mother's south grave, holding 2 court verdicts in my hand, and silently set them aflame. As those 2 sin-laden papers turned to ashes, tears welled in my eyes. I placed a pure white balloon flower before the tombstone. Mom, rest in peace. Those who harmed us have all received the punishment they deserved. A gust of wind arose, the ashes swirled and danced in the air, lingering for a long time before finally settling. It seems my mother got the message. I hope you want to let that wretched pair off the hook down there.